The problem was talking over and interrupting each other and growing impatient when the other spent too much time defending their position. I gave them a homework assignment to find a talking stick to use to help with traffic control when talking with each other. The assignment entails having each partner select 3 items to use as a talking stick, in that whoever is holding the talking stick gets to speak, and the other partner can't speak until they're holding the talking stick. Mark's choices include the engraved cake knife from their wedding, a fountain pen, and a large fat candy cane from Christmas. Lisa's choices included a sparkly pink magic wand with ribbon streamers, a big silk sunflower, and a whisk that had rainbow markings on it. Then they each presented the items they'd chosen, and each made the case for why each item should be their talking stick.